Yesterday's video was something different, right? A little bit weird. Let's riff on that just a little bit. And I don't know how many days talking about this is going to last. Maybe this will be a whole thing for a while. Maybe tomorrow I'm going to feel like I'm done with it. But let's start and just see where this thread goes. I think one of the underlying ideas there that we can kind of pull out of it, extract and focus on, is this notion of being ourselves, which all the time we hear reinforced for kids. We see it a story told time and time again in cartoons. We hear the point made in children's movies. And I think part of what happens is as we grow older, a lot of us figure out that we make some trade-offs, that we're tempted by opportunities, that we are given role models sometimes that we feel like, well, I can see how being myself has its pros and cons. I can see there's also some reasons why we might steer another direction. And none of this is to say to be negative towards anybody. None of this is to say that there's not reasons we can learn from social feedback, from peers, from people we respect, and so on. What this is about is that I think a lot of people lose touch of this idea that they can be themselves. That there is value in finding our personality, reinforcing who we are, how we do things, why we do things the way we do. That it's possible to still be open to feedback, to still learn from feedback, while not simultaneously letting ourselves become a product of the feedback around us and of the forces around us that try to curve and shape us in certain ways. This is important because at the end of the day, the way that we're shaped, our reactions, our attitudes, how we handle situations are going to, in the long run, add up to put us in a different situation. Maybe a better situation, maybe a worse situation. In many cases, maybe just a different situation between possible options out of many. It's kind of the nice part of free will. But if we're not deciding, if we're not putting a filter somewhere, if we're not putting a line and saying, here's where I decide that this is how I'm going to do something, here's how I think it ought to be done, here's the idea I want to test, several things start to happen that are bad. Among them, if we're not testing our idea, if we're not trying our way, if we're not doing it the way that we think it ought to be done, then we'll never learn why not to do it that way. We don't get to find out. We've avoided it. What's happening usually is that some authority figure, maybe a boss, maybe a teacher, somebody else, we're doing it how they're telling us to do it, and in the process we're getting their questions answered. We're approaching it from the way they're telling us to, and this takes us out of the equation. This takes us out of control. This stops us finding out if our idea would have been any good. And sometimes it is. Sometimes it is. They're not trying to suppress, they're not trying to come out and do something negative. They're trying what they think makes sense. And obviously, if it's the job, it's the job. You get paid to do it, you go there, you do it. But there's a difference between being able to separate out and think of, okay, well here, my task is to follow the boss's orders, do what needs done according to the boss. And then maybe the difference here is about our own time. It's about what we're doing with it. It's about making sure that in our time when we're not under someone else's control or direction, that we maintain a strong identity outside of that as to, yeah, but here's my thing. And here's how I'm going about it. It doesn't matter what that thing is, writing stories, making music, programming games. Doesn't matter what that thing is. Painting, but it doesn't matter. I tend to point to these sort of creative things that result in artifacts just because that's what my craft background is in for games. But it's for somebody else, it might be, I don't know, public speaking, dance. Things that don't have as much of an artifact to it. And in any of these cases, it's about deciding that I can do my thing, my way, letting my personality come through in it, even if there's flaws, even if there's imperfections, even if, like I said in last video's title, basically, even if it's not for everyone. That the more I try to dull it down, the more I try to let the world shape me and box me in and tell me how to be and turn me into what they want to see and hear, the more we do that and start losing track of ourselves, we're fighting. We're fighting and we're conforming ourselves into somebody that we're not. And one of the maybe downsides to that is also it's just not going to last. There's going to be a breaking point. There's going to be a boiling over point. There's going to be a point where you figure out, I'm tired of being somebody else. I'm tired of being who I'm not. And you're going to start over anyway. Back where you could have had a head start if you decided, I'm going to be me. I'm going to do things my way. I'm going to see where they lead. I'm going to try it. I'm going to listen to the feedback. I'm going to see and hear and seek out other perspectives. But at the end of the day, I'm going to be me and I'm going to do things my way.